Oh, hey, Fruitbat Fishing Thoughts. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that watch, I can get a little crazy sometimes, and I appreciate you watching because, heck, we're just having fun here. Driving down I-20 west, headed towards the great state of Texas. Done with Hartwell, had a decent event there. Excited, the trains are back on the track, sitting in the 30s or something in AOI, so excited about it. I mean, the next two events are super important for points. Really need to lock in at Fork and the Sabine and try to get some, a really good two finishes out of this group of tournaments. And then, we'll be a lot of the way through the season and hopefully move up a little in AOI. Anyway, here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the focus that the industry has right now on forward-facing sonar, and I'm getting tired of it. Like, it was cool when it first came out and I didn't have one. I got my first forward-facing sonar unit in 2022 at Oneida Lake at that open. And, people had it for a long time before I had really gotten it. And I was like, I remember my buddy from K&K Customs, Kevin, called me and was like, dude, have you seen, because he had gotten it on his boat. And he was like, dude, you can pull up to a dock and you can look underneath the dock and see if there's fish under there or not. And that's, and I was like, dude, what? Really? Like, is that really, do I really need that? I'm going to fish the dock anyway. And he was like, no, man, like, it's pretty legit, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't listen to him. I didn't get it. Finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get this forward-facing sonar deal and see if it helps me. Long story short, got it, whatever, we're here. And it's funny, like, that it was cool to watch and have Bassmaster talk about it a lot and how it's changing fishing. But man, the focus that is put on forward-facing sonar nowadays it's getting old. Now, I'm not saying that I don't want to ever use the technology. I don't want to talk about the technology, but can we talk about other things? Can we talk about how amazing mapping has gotten? You look at the Classic and Hartwell, and it, like, the problem with talking about forward-facing sonar all the time is you're missing what gets you to that point. All of the mega side imaging with Humminbird that I do with my Lake Master mapping up there, going down graphing all these points, getting up on top of the point. And now we're talking about Hartwell, getting up on top of the point and looking and seeing 4-pounders, 3-pound spots, largemouth, and saying, okay, this is a good point. I'm going to fish this in the tournament. And why was I on that point? Because of the relief shading of Lake Master, and I could see that point kind of came out in a weird way and tapered down, and that's why I'm gonna go up here and look at this point with my eyes and see if there's any fish up on top of it. But the only the story that's told there when I'm fishing that point, or for example when Easton's fishing that ditch in the Classic, is look at the forward-facing sonar. He throws his bait in there, and the fish are there. And dude, that's 2%. No, that's not 2%. That's 10% of the whole picture, the whole story. And I think we're losing the education side. I was just talking to someone in the industry that is working. He works for a very big company in the industry. We were talking about how the story's lost, which in turn the education of bass fishing as a whole isn't really there anymore, because there's such a big focus on forward-facing sonar that we're not talking about all of the steps and all of the whole picture leading up to that point. So when you talk about forward-facing sonar on Bass Live all the time, and that's the discussions in the forums, it's everywhere. People just forget how hard it is to find these areas and make these moves in a tournament to then, okay, now I'm looking at my forward-facing sonar, and there's fish here, right? And they may not bite, but there's fish here. But why are there fish there? Well, because I was going down the bank on my Mega 360 looking at all these different stumps, and I figured out the bigger stumps that had the bigger roots was primarily where the bigger fish were. And I found that area because I was side imaging down the bank looking at my Lake Master, and I said, okay, that bank's, it slopes, it's a 45-degree slope as opposed to like a 70-degree slope. Let me go over there and graph that in practice or in pre-practice and see what's going on over there. And then, like, there's just so much that goes on to find these areas that people just aren't talking about. People are missing that side of the story, which is really 80 to 90% of the story. And I get it. Forward-facing sonar is a powerful tool. It is, and it will be as long as it stays in the game. But it's become such a... people have become so hyper-focused on forward-facing sonar that everyone's losing that education piece that has made Bassmaster successful in telling, like, okay, how are these fish found? Like when Zona used to do the lives and talk about, he made a 100-mile run. He did it because of the salinity content at the Sabine. It's better there or whatever, right? I'm just making stuff up, but that all isn't discussed anymore on any of the lives. And it's not Bassmaster's fault because that's what people are gravitating towards. But I just feel like we need to do a better job telling the whole story of how this guy have found these fish, rather than, he's looking at his forward-facing sonar, he casts down and catches it. And the problem with that is the youth and the younger guys, high schoolers, college anglers, people aren't on the elites below the age of, call it 25. I mean, I'm not that much older than 25, I'm 28, but, people that are watching this and trying to learn, they're not really learning. They're learning that all they need to do is get a forward-facing sonar unit and put it in the water. And as powerful as forward-facing sonar is, that is not going to be the end-all, be-all, key to success. I promise you it's not. There are very few lakes, especially at certain times of year, that you can put your boat in and just look at your forward-facing sonar and catch them. And I know that that's what, all the YouTubers that really like to just talk about, how bad forward-facing sonar is, that's what they think they do with it. But that's not what we do with it. Forward-facing sonar is that, like I said, 20% tool at the end that gets you that, that you use as a tool to catch those fish that you found that may have taken you 3 weeks, a week of pre-practice, the map studying, Google Earth, all that behind the scenes work, and then 3 days of practice for an elite event or an open, graphing. All of that leads you to the point where you can use your forward-facing sonar, your 360, use all the tools that you have at your disposal to catch those fish as efficiently as possible. So I'm just tired of the emphasis. Like, there can be an emphasis on forward-facing sonar, but it doesn't need to be like 99.9% of the conversation all of the time. And I don't know, I just get tired of talking about forward-facing sonar, and that's why having Drew Cook and Paul Marks go head to head was super cool because, yeah, Paul Marks was using forward-facing sonar, but he was herring fishing. It's different. He wasn't out in the middle just scoping suspenders randomly. Drew Cook was fishing, sight fishing, catching them on beds. Like, that was just a cool tournament to watch, especially because how close the weights were. That Hartwell event, just a little recap for you guys, I caught some really quality fish that were out deeper, on stumps and rocks and little crevices in the rocks. Some of them some of the spotted bass were on beds. Some of them were just cruising out there, but hugged to the bottom. Now, 90% of that stuff that I found was with my mega side imaging. And the reason I found that stuff was with my Lake Master mapping. And I can show you a breakdown in my next video of how I use that stuff to my advantage to then employ my forward-facing sonar. But, I don't want to go on and on in this video about it, but that is I'm gonna do another video on just what I talked about. Why was I using my forward-facing sonar in these areas to catch these fish? And give you a true understanding of like what it takes to get to that point, because I think we're missing that right now. I think people aren't talking about it enough. So, I don't know, just my rambling here, going down I-20 West, headed towards Texas. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my little rant. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, is forward-facing sonar, that, in your opinion, is it that powerful that we only need to talk about it and that's it when it comes to fishing? Or is there a lot more to the picture that people are just missing and they're skipping right to forward-facing sonar and that's all they care about? I think that the process leading up to using forward-facing sonar is missing. We're missing that when we talk about fishing and breaking down water. We're missing that in a lot of the discussions about how people are catching them. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed this Fruitbat fishing thoughts little vlog situation. I'll catch you guys later.